Hey, good morning, everybody. All right, our next presenter is Dr. Lynne Kitei. Look, it is amazing how many people end up in this quest for truth about what the heck is going on. And these people come from all walks of life, okay? Unfortunately, when we get involved in these subjects, there is still some stigma, okay? There is still this idea of let's kill the messenger. And so it does make it really, really difficult for people that have some level of prominence, they've achieved some level of stability in their lives, to risk that when they step forward. Now, Dr. Lynne, she was an acclaimed health educator, okay? She had a solid career. She was respected throughout her community. And she struggled with this Phoenix Light contact for fully 7 years behind the scenes before it just finally became overwhelming and she had to begin to step forward. She did that about 5 years ago. And in that subsequent time, she has gotten a best-selling book, which of course she'll meet with you at the author table after the presentation and sign for you, and an acclaimed, award-winning documentary. But think about it. Think about the risk when you finally step forward. She's to be congratulated and loved. Everybody, please welcome Dr. X.
Thank you so much, Bob. I have to tell you, it's unbelievable to me that I'm actually standing in front of an audience talking still about this topic after pushing my entire medical professional career aside for 4 years to try to find a logical source and meaning for what I witnessed and photographed, ending up with a 750-page journal 4 years later, that I squeezed the best of what I found into 220 pages, called it the Phoenix Lights, a skeptic's discovery that we are not alone, and finally came forward after 7 years of anonymity in 2004, March 13th, 2004, and from that time to this, and by the way, at that time, the official explanation of the Phoenix Lights and the accepted explanation was that it was merely military illumination flares. And a lot has happened in the last few years to change that. I'm not alone in this. There are many people. I am so grateful and honored that there are so many people that have contributed to the Phoenix Lights Project, from university-based scientists to UFO researchers and investigators to journalists to the witnesses themselves. I am so grateful for their contribution that's brought us to this point, that's really put the Phoenix Lights on the map, not only in ufology, but also in the annals of human consciousness. And if there's anybody out there that is not familiar with the Phoenix Lights, or even if you are familiar with the Phoenix Lights, I'm going to share with you now just a brief report that from NBC that appeared last May, and then we'll have some fun exploring some of the intriguing topics they touch on. There's much more to this story. Much more to this story. Not only what happened after March 13th, but what happened during March 13th. And we're going to get to that after this. We need sound.
Even got a governor in on the act. He tried to make a joke of it at first, but ended up admitting that he just couldn't explain what he saw. But that didn't stop the military from trying. We have saved the best and one of the best known UFOs caught on tape for last. It is our #1 close encounter.
March 13th, 1997. Everyone was out under the night sky to get a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, which is passing over.
But there was something else passing over the sky that night as well.
It was awesome and amazing. It originally started out as the 6 points of light in a mile-wide span. I grabbed the camera and I got outside. By the time I focused the camera, 3 had disappeared, and I caught the 3 above the city like a giant triangle.
What Dr. Lynne Kitei and thousands of others saw that night would become known as the Phoenix Lights, one of the most famous and well-documented UFO sightings ever.
The footage does not do it justice, okay? In the footage, they're much smaller, they're white. I call them... Whoops, sorry. Touch something.
Our next sighting even got a governor in on the act. He tried to make a joke of it at first, but ended up admitting that he just couldn't explain what he saw. But that didn't stop the military from trying. We have saved the best and one of the best known UFOs caught on tape for last. It is our #1 close encounter.
March 13th, 1997, everyone was out under the night sky to get a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, which is passing over.
But there was something else passing over the sky that night as well.
It was awesome and amazing. It originally started out as the 6 points of light in a mile-wide span. I grabbed the camera and I got outside. By the time I focused the camera, 3 had disappeared, and I caught the 3 above the city like a giant triangle.
What Dr. Lynne Kitei and thousands of others saw that night would become known as the Phoenix Lights, one of the most famous and well-documented UFO sightings ever.
The footage does not do it justice, okay? In the footage, they're much smaller, they're white. I call them an orb because the light did not extend outside the edge, and the color within each orb was a uniform amber color throughout. It didn't glare at all. These were very mesmerizing, very soothing, and as I was watching these, I have to admit that it seemed that there was an intelligence looking back at me.
While Dr. Kitei saw lights moving in formation, others throughout the state reported seeing something even more otherworldly.
This very large delta-shaped craft flew 200-mile course and was witnessed by hundreds, if not thousands, of people.
Filmmaker James Fox traveled to Phoenix and interviewed dozens of eyewitnesses for a documentary featuring the Phoenix Lights.
It passed right in front of us. 5 lights that were a V.
You're not going to believe what I saw.
And he was amazed by what he heard.
We opened up a newspaper. You could not block out the object that we saw.
And these are very unambiguous, up-close sighting of a craft, not lights, not flares. This is the craft that flew directly overhead people. One of the kids I talked to said he could have hit it with a rock, it was so low.
Whoever did this wanted to be seen.
And they were seen by Dr. Kitei again and again and again, nearly a dozen times over the next decade. But is this the case of an alien craft that wanted to be seen, or yet another example of people wanting to see an alien craft?
When it's pitch black, how would you possibly know if there's a structure there or not, versus one that's just in your mind? The curious thing about the people in the Phoenix Lights who saw an actual craft of some kind moving is that other eyewitnesses in the same area didn't see that. They only saw the lights. Some people filled in the gaps between the lights in their minds and thought they saw something that wasn't actually there.
After the initial mass sighting in 1997, everyone wanted to get to the bottom of those mysterious lights. Everyone, it seemed, except the authorities.
For months, there was no investigation. There was no explanation. They just blew it off.
But then Governor Fife Symington announced he would launch an investigation, and at an unscheduled press conference claimed authorities had uncovered the source of the Phoenix Lights. The public waited with bated breath for the governor to reveal the evidence. Okay, it turns out the investigation was really just the governor's idea of a joke. And the evidence, that's just his aide, dressed up as an alien.
This almost hysterical environment that was building. I just decided that this is a great opportunity to go add some levity to the situation.
Who says you can't trust the government?
It really offended many, many, many people.
And Arizonans still did not have an explanation to the lights until...
About a month later, the flare theory emerged.
The military revealed that on March 13th, a National Guard unit had been undergoing a training mission that involved the dropping of flares.
And when people saw these brilliant flares, apparently suspended in midair, and they filmed it, they, jumped to the conclusion that these were UFOs.
But try telling one of the eyewitnesses that all they saw were military flares.
That's not what we witnessed or documented. I mean, flares cannot keep a formation. They drift with the wind, they float haphazardly, they have huge smoke trails that are illuminated by the flare itself.
I'm not saying it's an alien spacecraft, but don't tell me it was a military flare, because that's an insult to everybody.
Speaking of insulting eyewitnesses, it turns out that the governor may not be as skeptical as he appeared at that press conference.
I met with Governor Fife-Symington. He said, you know what? I saw that thing too.
Wait, he what?
And it clearly had a shape to it, and a big shape, and it was a constant shape. And you can't control flares that way. There's just no way they were flares.
So the ex-governor, who was also an ex-Air Force pilot, saw the craft that night in Phoenix, just like all the other eyewitnesses. But does his pedigree carry any clout with the skeptics?
Fife-Symington is an interesting case. Obviously, he's a thoughtful, intelligent man and a responsible person and a pilot, so he knows what he's looking at. But that doesn't make him any better as an eyewitness than the average truck driver just standing there. He can be fooled no differently than anybody else.
And it appears many people may have been fooled just a few weeks ago. On April 21st, 2008, there was another mass sighting of strange lights in the Phoenix night sky. However, someone has come forward claiming to have staged this most recent sighting by sending roadside flares hung from helium balloons into the sky. So if some of the sightings were in fact flares, will the mystery of the Phoenix lights finally burn out?
I think the fact that thousands of witnesses have come forward to date saying we saw this craft, I just don't think we can dismiss all that testimony.
I saw these things up close and personal, and no one can say that I didn't see what I saw. It cannot be explained or denied. And neither can decades of other notable sightings of orbs and V or triangle-shaped craft. In fact, orbs have been talked about since human documentation began, even in the Bible. And most things can be explained, but there are a small percentage of things that cannot, and just because we don't have the technology yet to definitively define what these things are, it doesn't mean they're not real. We may just be looking on the AM dial for an FM frequency, but we do have cameras. And as a scientist, I tried to search out the most credible photographic evidence to share with you today of similar sightings of orbs and triangle craft to what I shot myself at 10 o'clock on March 13th during the mass sighting. There's 3 points of light like a giant triangle over Phoenix. In fact, I had been in contact with air traffic controllers from a sighting 2 months before where I happened to catch the same formation in the same location, head-on, turning into a V-shape. Confirmed the next morning by air traffic controllers. It was so unnerving. I called around and found them at Sky Harbor International Airport that this object was hovering in Class B restricted airspace, and the same the morning after the mass sighting. And in their own words, the air traffic controllers said as they picked up their binoculars to look, they saw 6 points of light that seemed to be attached to something, but they couldn't quite see what it was attached to. You would hear this over and over again by witnesses to these phenomena that had lights on them, as if there was a field in between, over and over again. And some people did see a craft, but let's look at Kristen's, this is Mike Kristen's footage, equidistant orbs in a boomerang shape that actually are very similar to the Lubbock lights of 1951. This picture happened to be taken by an 18-year-old, 35 millimeter, at 5:30 and 10:37 p.m. on August 30th, and then was analyzed by 3 Texas professors who could not come up with any earthly explanation for these lights, but how they were described by witnesses are dots of lights that would form a V or U shape, much like the Phoenix lights. Let's fast forward 30 years to the Hudson Valley sighting. I found this interesting because the witnesses, really their accounts were very similar. and that they described a V-shaped row of lights connected to a solid object of some type. It was enormous, awesome, and spectacular. It moved slowly and silently and was easily as big as 3 football fields, as far larger than any aircraft manufactured at the time. And actually, some of the witnesses would describe it as a floating city, just giving you an idea of the immensity, and that it had a slow, steady movement. And actually, during the Phoenix Lights, many people were watching this object traverse at very low altitude, about 30 miles an hour, totally silent, and then take off at a tremendous speed. One of the chief investigators, Philip Improgno, who actually worked with J. Allen Hynek also on this case, came forward to say that there were at least 7,000 reports of UFOs in a 7-year period, and that many of the people would say that they felt that they had had contact with non-human intelligence from another world, something very akin to the Phoenix Lights, very similar. We would hear that over and over again. And while they were grazing New York, a little later they were grazing Connecticut, and this amazing picture was caught by a commercial pilot for 30 years, very similar to the Christians video. Now we get to the Belgium wave. Late 80s, early 90s. And, you know, we're talking maneuverability that just was far, far advanced from anything at that time. Radar return showed that this UFO actually dropped from 10,000 to 500 feet in 5 seconds. And it was very unusual sighting in that this phenomena traversed an entire country. And Belgium actually came to the United States, and the United States flatly denied that it was ours. And what was also unique about the Belgium sighting is that not only did civilian and military people come together on this, they also inquired at the university level. It's really a stellar example of what should happen. I've never said what these things are, but I know that they are, and that it's time we get this out in the open and address it and accept it and study it and move forward in our own evolution. The UK giant triangles, they would call them silent Vulcans. There were over 4,000 sightings, and this was in the early 1990s, and it was also appearing at that time in France and Holland and Germany, and fighters were sent off to intercept this unknown craft, much like what happened in Phoenix, actually at 8:20. We have reports not only from witnesses, but also the UFO Reporting Center, Peter Davenport, got a call from a crewman, supposedly, allegedly, from Luke Air Force Base, stating that military aircraft were sent off to intercept it, and as it got close, right on top of 7th Avenue and Indian School in Phoenix, it just blinked out. St. Petersburg. This one really got to me in my meticulous investigation, looking for a logical explanation. Here I found a sighting that happened 1 month before ours, a mass sighting, very similar to the Phoenix Lights. Watch this. In this video, you can see that it looks like there are like 3 lights clustered in each of these formation of lights, very similar to one of the craft, and we'll learn later because there's a lot more to this story, that traversed Arizona. In fact, not only were they witnessed by people all over the city and videos were caught, but it was also seen clearly by air traffic control and crewmen at the airport, much like in Phoenix. And one of the air traffic controllers, quote, said, "I sketched the event as it happened. The shape of the lights changed, left, and then reappeared. Others were watching through binoculars. There was an aircraft on the runway. They confirmed the presence of a UFO. By 7:15, the strange lights had now apparently formed into a triangle, and reports of the UFO were coming in from all different locations." Another similarity between St. Petersburg and Phoenix is that here we have a triangular shaped craft that was heralded by lights, much like the Phoenix Lights. We were seeing these orbs for days before, as I'll show you in a second here. But this was another video that was captured from St. Petersburg, Russia, which is really amazing. I mean, these people really caught some amazing footage, and this one got to me because I happened to catch footage of Phoenix Lights that appeared in 2005, a cluster of lights. You'll see, actually, this light was coming into a cluster of other lights on June 15th, 2005. Now we go to Rome. Actually, Paula Harris was kind enough to send me this picture. She was in a meeting with other ufologists, and somebody ran in and said, there's a UFO out there, and they caught pictures of it, and when they enhanced it, you can see there's 3 orbs there in a V shape. And here as well. In Arkansas in 2007, a colonel, Brian Fields, happened to catch a triangular formation of orbs, and to quote him, "I believe these lights were not of this world, and I feel a duty and responsibility to come forward," said Colonel Brian Fields, who spent nearly 32 years in the military piloting F-16 fighter jets, and he quotes, "I have no idea what they were." What's interesting here is that they ended up blowing it off and saying that they were flares. But take a look at this. An enhancement company took one of the orbs, and I have to tell you, I got shivers when I saw this, because this is so similar to what my husband and I saw 2 years before the mass sighting, up close, about 100 yards from our home. And when I stepped out on the balcony to take a picture of the 2 lower orbs, started out as a pyramid shape of 3 orbs, there was an eerie silence, and it felt as if something was watching, an intelligence was watching, I have to admit. And going through my mind was, who are you? What are you? Do you know that I'm here? I'd love to meet you. And here, a company, the Enhanced Imaging Research Company, enhanced one of these orbs, and in their estimate, and we heard Barbara Lamb even mention yesterday that there are beings that reside in these orbs. They feel that there's a face. I don't know if you can see the 2 eyes. It looks like there's a face in there. Maybe. At least they thought so. Now the triangle in Ohio. This I found interesting. Not only did the security guard happen to draw it, and it's so similar to what people were seeing throughout the state on March 13th, but she describes it, the bottom, as a dark charcoal gray or black that had a rough texture like burnt aluminum foil, all crumpled up, and then you stretch it out. There were witnesses that would describe throughout the state, even Terry Mansfield here, who was a key witness to the massive triangle craft, that it seemed like it was like a Ripley effect, black-gray Ripley effect, gunmetal effect, like looking through water. So I found that interesting that a witness said the same in Ohio. And a few minutes later, there's actually a witness that caught this triangle formation. He described it as a huge flat triangle-shaped craft, apparently lifting a large glowing object from a hill near Empire, Ohio. Now we get to Texas. We probably all heard about the Texas flap since last January in Stephenville, Texas. Very similar to the Phoenix Lights. People were seeing orbs, they were seeing large craft, and on October 27th, an eyewitness happened to catch this picture, which I thought was really poignant, these 3 orbs, and eyewitnesses would describe patterns of lights in straight lines that changed to vertical lines, straight lines that changed to triangular patterns, and pulsing red-orange lights. That's another very significant characteristic, because every time I would pick up my dad's Army binoculars from World War II, high-powered binoculars, and look at these objects, and there were other witnesses as well with celestine telescopes and so forth, you would see spinning balls of energy. It was pulsating balls, very unique, very different than anything you'd ever seen. And actually, there was someone, Steve Blonder, happened to catch, this is exactly what it looked like, on March 10th, March 12th, and also during the mass sighting, March 13th, called Bill Hamilton and Tom King, who rushed over and happened to catch the arrowhead formation of orbs a little before 10 o'clock, about 10 of 10 on March 13th. And the Texas sighting, again, the only explanation that the military has ever come out with is, again, that they were flares and planes from the military. The reality is that there were many things that were happening throughout the state on March 13th, 1997, that we'll get to a little later. But the data speaks for itself. And how about if we extinguish the flare theory once and for all here at the UFO Congress? Would you like to do that, guys? Okay. The data speaks for itself. Let's take a look at it. Here we have, this was the Texas sighting. Here's a picture that I took actually 1 month after 9/11. There's a story to that I talk about in the book. This picture was taken a year later. And let's look at flares. Okay, here we go. Here are military flares being deployed by the military. They said they were illumination flares, LU-2 illumination flares. You can see that there's a parachute and there's a huge smoke trail. And a nighttime shot shows just what illumination flares do. They illuminate the area around them. They also illuminate the smoke trail. There wasn't one witness of the Phoenix Lights that said that there was any illumination. Here we go. This is a picture, the second picture that I took 2 months before the mass sighting. Really, really poignant because it's showing 5 lights that people would describe 5 lights in a line or in a V shape with 2 trailing throughout the state on March 13th. This was 2 months before the mass sighting, again in the Class B airspace, confirmed by air traffic controllers next morning. Here we see the Kristen footage. Here's flares. Does the data speak for itself? Well, even though the data does speak for itself, I believe, 11 years later, there are still skeptics, just like the ones in the Dateline program, and you'll see here with a local skeptic in Phoenix who never bothered to look at it.
Major sighting here on the 13th of March. And it's happening in the skies over Phoenix. And no one seems to be able to explain what it was.
Oh, but many Arizonans say they know exactly what it was.
It was mesmerizing and exciting and awesome for thousands of people throughout the state.
Dr. Lynne Kitei is a leader in the push to identify the world's most famous UFO.
This sighting has now been hailed as the most important mass sighting in history, the most documented. It has the most witnesses. And worldwide, they're now talking about the Phoenix Lights event.
For years, the debate has raged. One of the most popular theories is the lights were flares like these, fired from a military aircraft. Steve Cates is known to 3TV viewers as Dr. Sky. He says flares may have been part of it, but there's more.
I believe the first event was simply flares. I think it was a cover for the next event, which came later, which indeed was an aircraft. I think it was a military test, very tightly coordinated by the Pentagon. Why and how this information has never been released, I have no idea.
Obviously, whoever did this wanted to be seen. People ask, could it have been military? Well, think about it. This was a night, a clear night, when thousands of people saw this overhead. And it was radar stealthy. Why would they do this and turn the lights on? It just doesn't make sense.
Making sense of the Phoenix Lights has been Lynne Kitei's mission. She helped build simulations like this after interviewing eyewitnesses and has spent years documenting the phenomenon. She published this book on the Phoenix Lights and firmly believes that we are not alone.
Something is visiting us and trying to wake us up to their presence. And what happened here 11 years ago is a sterling example of just that.
So after years of headlines, research, and controversy, she's still challenging people to search for answers.
All I say is just look at it. Just look at the data. It speaks for itself. On the other hand, there were local reporters who were working closely with investigators Michael Tanner and Jim Delatoso, as well as key witnesses, to try to get answers and really set the record straight. In this next series, you'll see NASA's own footage. It's pretty intriguing, daylight footage of these orbs. It was taken 1 month after 9/11, and a report that very few people have seen, a rebuttal to a very popular and very publicized program, Anatomy of the Sighting, supposedly did an analysis of the Kristen video and showed unequivocally that these lights went behind the mountain range, so they must be flares. Okay. Well, one of the reporters actually had seen the mile-wide triangle himself, and he met with Kristen to discuss just that.
What you're about to see is amazing. It was taken from the Space Shuttle Columbia during a mission last December.
So far, everything's normal. Then, the unknown objects start appearing.
In higher speeds, look at what they do. They converge. And they form a triangle of light. The astronauts were sufficiently interested in these 3 objects that they went and zoomed in on them.
Jim Delatoso thinks these objects are intelligent and could be related to the lights striking over Phoenix back in March.
New footage of those lights, and it's daytime video this time. Jim Schneebelt shows us the exclusive pictures and the story behind them.
More lights seen in the sky near Phoenix, but these lights appear in the daytime, about a month after the massive sighting over the city. This sighting shows two brightly lit objects hovering in the evening sky. One light blinks out, and another one appears, jumping around, while a third object tracks across the top of the screen at a very high rate of speed.
Even UFO critics have a hard time explaining this sighting as bombing flares over the Barry-Goldwater range. For one thing, this sighting was made in the daytime when flares aren't used. And for another thing, this sighting was made in this direction toward the Estrella Mountains. But from here in Rainbow Valley, the Barry-Goldwater range is that way.
The mystery of the lights was reignited by a one-hour TV special last week on the Discovery Channel. In that program, a California optics lab compares Kristen's nighttime video to the same scene taken during the daytime. Their result shows the lights above and beyond the mountains seeming to disappear as they fall out of sight over the bombing range, supporting the flare theory.
And he really stretched the imagination here to bring this thing in.
Kristen watched the program and questions it. He thinks the lights were lower and in front of the mountains. So we test the footage ourselves. It's a simple test using daytime and nighttime footage, both taken by Kristen using the same camera at the same location. We compare positions of the lights.
This is the first time I've seen this, and it didn't take long to do this at all. And just going from matching the shots up, going from one to the other, lights are in front of the mountain.
Why the discrepancy between our test and theirs?
He changed the positioning of these lights so that they would coincide with this peak over here.
He actually altered the footage?
How else could he do it? This light was always here, remember that?
If these are flares, are they over the bombing range? Or has the footage been altered? And by whom and why? The mystery continues.
Other sightings over Phoenix earlier that night also remain unexplained.
Okay, here we can see clearly that the Kristen's footage is over Phoenix. And keep in mind that even after they came out with the flare theory, and it was several months later, they didn't come out with it until a month after a USA Today article came out June 18th, opened our sighting up to international scrutiny. We were deluged by media from all over the world. Once I talked to the witnesses, their reports were so detailed, so heartfelt. They too were asking, why isn't there an explanation? Why isn't there an investigation? A month later, and I had done my homework with the military, they were interested in seeing my data and giving an explanation for it. They didn't know what the heck was going on when I talked to them. I get a call from the head of the PR at the Air National Guard, Dr. Lynne. We think we might know what those lights were back in March, and this is in July 24th. I said, you do? I said, she said, yeah, would you believe nobody looked at the log for visiting Air National Guard? The Maryland Air National Guard was in town sending off flares, so that must be what some people saw. And I said, well, when were they in town? March 1st to the 15th. I said, so they weren't in town in January? She said, oh no. I said, well, I have photographs that prove, and air traffic controllers to confirm, that there was a sighting in the same exact location of the same exact formation 2 months before the mass sighting. She said, you never told me that. And then in the next sentence, and I had educated myself, I said, and I'm talking fast because I really have to get a lot in. I have an hour and a half show that I'm squeezing into an hour. So forgive me if I'm talking on 78. But anyway, I hope you can hear it. So I said, well, wait a minute. How are you telling me? You're telling me that flares that can't keep information traverse the entire state for many hours? She said, oh, I have a call coming in. I'll get back to you. Well, I'm still waiting. Anyway. Fine. If it's flares, well, I know I had pictures not only March 13th, 2 months before, but when we went back to the pictures from 2 years before, the same formation is in the same location in the background there too. Take a look at them on my website, thephoenixlights.net. Anyway, I knew I had pictures that verified 3 times that the same phenomenon occurred. If the military did it, fine, reenact it. And many people asked that, including Francis Barwood. Finally, right before the 3rd anniversary of the Phoenix Lights, they announced, big announcement, that 3 National Guards were sending off flares to show everybody the Phoenix Lights. Well, needless to say, we were all out watching with cameras. Dismal, dismal failure. It was a joke. It was a joke, and really confirmed for the people that saw the Phoenix Lights that that's not what caused them. And do you know that it's never been reenacted in 12 years? And obviously, the military couldn't use that excuse again, especially for the people in the Phoenix area. So what happened when there was a new sighting, April 21st, 2008? Was it the Phoenix Lights or was it a hoax? Here's a scenario. We had just completed the 11th anniversary, a month before, 11th anniversary celebration, big hoopla. We had finished our new documentary with Dr. Edgar Mitchell and Symington, and huge crowds at the Harkins Theater. We're going to be doing that again, actually, March 15th. Everyone's invited. And I had just come back from also what was happening was that Symington had come forward just a few months before, and there was a lot of international attention for that. And I had just come back from from Steve Bassett's conference, presenting there for the weekend. I walked into the house and the phone's ringing. 8 o'clock at night, I pick up the phone. Hi, Dr. Lynne, this is a CNN reporter, and do you see the lights out there? This is in real time, they're calling me. And we're kind of nestled in the mountains. We have a panoramic view of the city, but we can't see the Deer Valley area, and it was supposedly near the Deer Valley Airport. I hung up, called our office manager who lives out there. She got in her car, went out to the airport, calls me up. She says, Dr. Lynne, I don't see any lights, but I've never seen so many helicopters in my life. Well, I went to bed. I was exhausted. I get awakened at 7 a.m. by a phone call. I'm in a stupor. I answer it. Dr. Lynne, this is Kitei radio. Will you be on in 5 minutes? I didn't even know what was happening about the lights the night before. So I ran downstairs, got on my computer, and this is what I saw. There were people out there taking pictures, and really good pictures. What they said was that they saw 4 lights in straight lines, changing to a square, and then changing to a triangle arrowhead. Actually, it was #1 topic on the Drudge Report. Well, you can imagine, here I get on the radio. My second call was to KFYI, Charles Goyette, which was a very interesting conversation because 3 of the witnesses reported seeing lights. Oh man, okay. Seeing lights on Sunday evening, the night before.
It's so strange. It wasn't last night. I was sitting outside on Sunday night, and when I saw this photograph in the Republic today of these perfectly round orbs, you know, nothing, I saw one moving, I live in central Phoenix. It was moving slightly to the northeast, and it was moving at quite a rapid pace, and it just absolutely disappeared.
When was this, Jill?
It would have been Sunday night.
Well, hang on a minute, Jill. I'll come back to you. I have another Sunday night report. This is Barb in Cave Creek. Barb, when did you see these lights?
I started seeing them on Sunday night as well. And they were vague. I'm up here in Cave Creek, and it was at sunset that I was seeing them. But the other thing I wanted to report is that I saw 2 mornings in a row, including Sunday morning, 2 black unmarked helicopters flying from north to south right over Cave Creek. Low-flying black unmarked helicopters. It's the 3rd time I've seen them in the last 2 weeks.
Well, that's interesting. Jill, she saw something Sunday night as well. Jill?
Yes.
Yeah.
I certainly did. And when I was out, I thought, oh, it's a shooting star. But it wasn't anything close. It was larger, and it was perfectly round. It looked like a golf ball. And it was moving to the northeast. It was moving quite quickly, and probably about halfway up, you know, from my horizon, it just totally it totally disappeared. Point out.
Dr. Lynne, maybe we're in luck. If both Jill and Barb saw something on Sunday night, and then everybody in Phoenix that saw this thing at Deer Valley, in the Deer Valley neighborhood last night, maybe there's some activity. Maybe we can all go out and stand on the porch tonight and get something.
I hope everybody does. Actually, that sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's all about. Communicating, getting this out in the open, and being out there with, especially 35 millimeter. If people have 35 millimeter cameras, they capture these phenomena the best, and that's how we can analyze them better than digital if possible. But you know, the main thing is just to get out there and actually experience it yourself. See what it's all about, and hopefully, you know, they might be sending some flares out tonight. So don't be mistaken. If you see flares lifting and dropping and huge smoke trails, if you look through binoculars, Flares cannot keep a formation. Flares, drift with the wind and are pretty haphazard. These sound like there's some kind of intelligence behind it. So make sure that you're aware of that when you're looking at whatever you're looking at.
Well, here we go. We had another guy just called up, and I didn't hang on the line, but he says he saw something Sunday night as well.
And then I found a couple days later on the ArizonaCentral.com another witness that saw 2 red lights just like the ones in the video over at East Mesa on Sunday evening. They were moving east for a couple of minutes and then vanished. Well, as you can see, the best voices are the witnesses themselves.
Well, it really is like something out of the X-Files. Mysterious lights hovering over the valley. And while it may be Earth Day, the talk of the town is all about something that could be from out of this world.
None of the local airports will claim them, same goes for the military. But something was glittering in the sky yesterday, just after 8 p.m.
It had me stunned. I was in chill bumps last night when I seen it.
Brian Martin refuels planes at Sky Harbor, but he used to be a military crew chief working with B-1 bombers and Blackhawks. He said the red light formations had to be around 15,000 feet high.
I've seen some strange stuff in the military. It's nothing like I've seen in the military.
Martin says even the professional pilots were stunned.
Had Pan Am 921 flying around and doing circles up there looking at it. And when he landed, I talked to him, and he was all excited.
The executive director of the Phoenix Lights Project says similar mystery lights showed up almost exactly 11 years ago. And even though thousands of people saw the orbs, no one can identify them to this day.
Some people actually saw this take off at a tremendous speed. Incredible technology, to be sure. Totally silent. It was very, very eerie, but exciting. And some of the footage from last night is absolutely wonderful.
Another strange sighting has a lot of people talking in Arizona. It's not the first time mysterious lights have been spotted hovering the night sky there, but this time we have pictures. And joining us now is iReporter Brad Drenning, who witnessed the whole thing and took some incredible pictures, and it's the most viewed video ever on our user-generated community website, ireport.com. Hi, Brad, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great, thank you. First off, thank you so much for taking the pictures and sharing them with us. I want you to tell us, how did it all go down? Just tell us about what happened last night.
My family and I were watching television last evening just after dinner. My son, David Drenning, one of his friends, Kyle, called and he said, hey, there's some lights outside. You need to go check them out. And we walked outside and we looked up, and it was just kind of, total amazement. We looked at it for quite a while. I ran in. I'm a big CNN watcher. Ran in, I grabbed my camera, and we started filming, right away. So it was just amazing. It's hard to even describe, but they just sat there. They didn't move. They stayed in one position as far as in the same area. And then they just started making different formations. So it was very hard to explain, but very exciting all at the same time. And I think you can hear that from the video.
Right, we could hear your children talking in the background too. Could you hear any types of noises coming from these lights?
We couldn't hear any noises. They were very far away. I mean, there was a plane in the video that you can see. There was a plane, but it was probably 30 or 40,000 feet lower than what we were able to. The lights were way up there. I don't know how to explain that.
So when you say they were in formation, okay, we're watching some video now. I don't know if you could see it, but they kind of move apart and then they kind of come back together. What did you think when you saw this?
Well, like I say, at first they were in a straight line before we got the camera, and then they started moving into different formations. Trapezoid, square, kind of a W, and then it moved into a diamond. So it was very specific type formations, and then one by one they started to blink, and one would take off, and then very systematically. In my opinion, there's no way it could be some type of flare. It had to be something other, because, like I say, it was they stayed in one area, they didn't drift off, and they made very specific formations. So it was something that's very hard to explain.
And so is what happened next. The media frenzy was just incredible. I was called to every news station, running around town. I'd gotten a call from Fox in the Morning, flying me on the red eye for a 9 o'clock interview at Fox in the Morning with Richard Dolan. It was a great interview. And I'm in the middle, in late afternoon, I was in the middle of a Nightline and Good Morning America interview when we got a call that a man had said that his neighbor, he saw his neighbor sending off helium balloons tied to road flares with string, 2 at a time, and that's definitely what the sighting was the night before. And to quote him, "I came forward so people wouldn't panic." It sounds to me that people were more fascinated than panicked, but let's hear what he has to say.
And then all of a sudden I saw 2 balloons going straight up, and it had flares on it. And I knew it was flares because you could see it lighting, and then you could see it like flashes of, the pieces of sparkles falling off the flares. It didn't look like it went any higher either. It just went at a certain distance, and they were just hovering, where you didn't see the balloons anymore. All you see was the lights. The first 2 that went up, one here, and then the other 2 came up.
Yeah.
It looked like it was right below it, forming like a square.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was like that for quite a while. So
like they had an altitude level that they could go, and that was about it.
And that was about it.
So little green men are not visiting us.
No, I don't believe in that at all. So
okay,
I just saw what I saw, and I said, "Oh, well, there it is, right there." At least in this case.
And reporters went right to the hoaxer's house. He wasn't there, but children were, who supposedly were with him the night before. They didn't know anything about it. And it took several days before the reporters finally caught up with this elusive hoaxer, and here's what he had to say.
The mysterious flying Phoenix lights, they didn't originate in outer space, but from this North Valley backyard.
For fun with the kids and the neighbors.
Monday night, when the sun went down, this man went to work, tying 4 big helium-filled balloons to road flares with fishing line, checking the wind, lighting them, then letting them go one by one, 1 minute at a time. He asked us to hide his identity.
Very impressed. They're very bright, and something I'd never seen before.
And here's his handiwork. He estimates a few hundred feet in the air. The man behind the latest Phoenix lights believes flares and balloons created the first phenomenon 11 years ago. Only that time, it wasn't him. So, will there be another Phoenix light show soon? He says if there is, it won't be coming from his backyard.
You think there's still going to be people out there saying it's from some other planet or something?
Oh, there always will be, because people believe in that.
Yeah.
But not yet.
Not last night.
No, and not 11 years ago.
Why did he add the rider? Did he really think that the Phoenix lights that traverse the entire state was caused by balloons on flares 12 years ago? Or is this the new excuse, the new swamp gas of the 21st century? Anyway, like myself, some others of the reporters weren't going to let this stand, because even though the media, actually, they just stopped the interview and Good Morning America and Nightline right there. Media just fed into this excuse immediately, most media. But there were reporters in Phoenix that weren't taking this lightly. They saw the holes in the story as clearly as I did, and they were looking at the inconsistencies. Number one, air traffic controllers, both at Sky Harbor and Deer Valley Airport, came forward immediately. And here's Sky Watchers at Deer Valley Airport, right near the sighting, could not identify them. Within hours, they were silenced by the FAA. A neighbor said the balloons were sent off 2 at a time, versus a hoaxer who on a number of reports said that he was sending these balloons up 1 at a time, a minute apart. A great, amazing feat. I mean, anything's possible for these to be in a straight line in the same area if he was doing that. By the way, other neighbors were contacted by Filer's File who were out that night, and they said they didn't see anything. And again, the anonymous, he wanted to stay anonymous, hoaxer, could not be reached for several days. And once he was, there was questionable evidence. All he had was some road flares and some balloons and string on a chair, no helium tank, and he would not reenact it for the reporter. And nothing was found. No evidence was found that he even did this. Also, the fact that he says that it was the same thing as the 97 sighting is pretty interesting. And the fire department, we were in a drought. We had wildfires happening in the state that were out of control. It had not rained since the beginning of February, and this guy's sending off flares like the man who came forward said he saw sparks coming off, and here we are in an almost rural area with desert foliage. That's pretty dangerous, but there was no inquiry. There were no charges. What's up with that? And when one of the reporters tried to actually reenact this, the flare immediately pulled down the balloon. But we're in luck because UFO Hunters was actually doing the same kind of a reenactment for a sighting in Tinley, Illinois in 2004. Take a watch. And they had several men doing this at the same time, and they also had these balloons tethered to stay in the same area.
A flare is
There should be sound.
suspended from each balloon.
No sound.
Gentlemen, light your flares. Make it more launch.
You can see how they're just going to go
ahead,
flipping
Jake.
around all over the place. Certainly not keeping formations in straight lines and squares and triangles. Okay, and there's a number of coincidences, or is there a connection? Just a couple weeks ago, I get contacted by a couple out of the blue to tell me that they actually had footage of a triangle formation, a V formation of 3 lights that they happened to catch the night after this new sighting. Now, I don't know if you can see it right there. It's a little difficult to see. I'll try to stop it for you. There you go, right there. See that? Can you see it? I know it's difficult, but there's 3 lights there. Because of the recent 11th anniversary hoopla, did the military want to diffuse the interest in the, and with a questionable explanation, or was there actually a new sighting that they staged to debunk the Phoenix lights? Though everyone, because here we have people that not only saw these lights the night before, the 21st, but also now we have video that showed the night after. Another coincidence, we have Above Top Secret. There were a number of blogs out there. People were really ticked off about this explanation and trying to reenact it themselves and failed, searching out information about it to discredit it. And actually the Above Top Secret group found out, interestingly enough, that the guy who first came forward, Lionel Milo, is career military. Coincidence or connection? Another connection is that
out of New York City, where a lot of people here have claimed to see strange lights in the sky. This could well be the first UFO sighting of 2009.
I know this is going to sound crazy.
I know. 5 red lights over the sky.
It's a little eerie.
Looked up at the sky and I saw these 3 red blinking lights. The color was a very deep red. The light that was closest to me actually started moving, directly overhead, and it just sat there. It had to be like 4, 5, 6 times the size of a jet plane.
Did these look like flares, or do they look different from flares?
I did not think of flares when I saw these things.
I've been in the aviation industry about 20 years. I do have a pilot's license. I've never seen a pattern like this in the sky before. 5 red lights in the sky in a very unusual pattern. I called the control tower at the airport. I know a bunch of the guys that work in that control tower, and so I called down there and spoke to one of them, and he said to me, I see the lights, I don't know what they are, we're not talking to them.
And the official explanation, balloons, helium balloons tied to road flares. There was another coincidence, one that touched me personally, happened the morning after this new sighting. What a coincidence this was. Actually, to me, it was a gift because this had been planned months in advance. And here, the morning after this new sighting that got international attention, our Phoenix Lights documentary was released on April 22nd, 2008, on the shelves. Here people are hearing about the Phoenix Lights for the very first time and curious, what are the Phoenix Lights? And there's our documentary sitting on the shelves for them to learn and to grow. And there's other connections, and this could be a whole other, another presentation, but I just want to quickly run through this. In my inquiry, I found that there were many people that had near-death experiences that was reawakened by the Phoenix Lights, and I thought that really curious. I really get into it in the book a lot more, and I thought, could there be a connection between all unexplained phenomena, be it near-death experience, out-of-body experience, about unexplained aerial phenomena that have a mystical light associated with the experience? And lo and behold, I did find, not only in the experience itself, but in the after effect, the profound transformation, the positive enlightenment, the awakening that happens. And we've had a positive transformation in Arizona since 1997, psychologically and the media education. Phoenix Lights 3 has formed. Rebecca Hardcastle, Terry, if you want to, Terry is the CEO of the Department of Peace, a stellar example of what happens after you have an up experience, what I call an unexplained phenomena experience. It wakes you up to what you're doing to the earth and to each other before it's too late. That is the message. In real time, the psychological transformation, Independence Day had come out 6 months before, and kids were scared when they first saw this big triangle craft coming towards them, jumping up and down, Independence Day, Independence Day. But as it got closer, not only children but adults as well, a calmness took over them, a connectiveness, a connection to the phenomena itself, an awakening without fear. Do you know that in 12 years there has not been not one report of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights? That's pretty telling. And certainly there's been a positive transformation over time. In the international media, small steps, but we are seeing Larry King Show, UFO Hunters, History Channel, Travel Channel, more and more it's coming out, even though they have those debunkers still, but maybe hopefully that will pass, because it has with the local media. Even though most media feed into a logical explanation, the local media is not doing so. They are there in real time, immediate response, and they are open to people coming to them. It's a total transformation in the Phoenix area in the media. It's really a model for what should happen. I would play you actually on the Charles Goyette show. We talked just about that how wonderful it is that the media is open to these phenomena, not snickering or laughing or ridiculing any longer. They absolutely will accept people coming to them and talking about this, and this has to happen. It's really a model for everywhere. Educational transformation. Phoenix Lights 3 is now embarking not only in raising awareness and helping, who's preparing the public, the general public that don't know about this phenomenon like I didn't 12 years ago, to be ready for what happens next. And we want to do it in a very gentle way, in a very kind way, understanding way, and also an informative way. And we're actually working on a curriculum right now for the classroom. I've been producing video and workbook curriculums for the last 30 years on the reality of vital health issues, distributed by Discovery Education. Well, it's time we had the reality of this vital issue in the classroom, don't you think? And we are now working from middle school through college, and we'll keep you all posted. The Phoenix Lights Network, I'm sorry I'm going through this fast, is working, and this is the newest information that is so exciting. We are working on presenting a full scope of what really happened March 13th, 1997. There were many things happening throughout the state for many hours, many different craft, orbs detaching from craft, going out into the environment, discoid craft, and much more. And what we're doing now is working on this wonderful geospatial animation. You'll hear the voice of Larry Lowe in the background, and he handed me this the night before I left, and I just stuck it on here just to show this is going to be very exciting, because what we're doing, and actually this craft right here that came through Prescott, I don't know if you can see there, but very similar to what we saw in not only Lubbock, Texas, but also in St. Petersburg, Russia, with the 3. There's actually these lights, even though they look like they're 5, there's 3 bunched together. And there are a number of people contributing to this. So there are many people out in the audience right now. I wish I could name all of you, who have really helped in getting this information out there and helping to get me here today to talk about this. But working on this is Michael Tanner. For 12 years, he's been compiling data from all over the state, as well as Bill Hamilton, as well as Frances Barwood. She got close to 1,000 reports, as well as the Arizona MUFON is helping us compile the data so that we can really get a picture of what went on here. In fact, this second V-shaped craft came in also from the north, and was a little bit different shape, and actually was extremely low altitude. And as it passed over Phoenix, very low over Piestewa Peak right there, that's probably the one that Terry saw. Symington also saw it at this point. Then it started moving towards Camelback Mountain. You can see this is pretty cool. Yes, we've tried to put technology with the data so that we can really show people, and this will be on the website, the Phoenix Lights Network website very soon. So, but you're getting a sneak peek preview of this. I wanted to show it to the UFO Congress first to show you what's happening on the educational front, to raise awareness and to help people understand. This craft actually went over the runways at the airport. And like I said, we're going to be having a showing for anybody that can't make it to our anniversary showing, which is great fun in the theater. We will have the DVD available as well as the book out in the lobby after this. But those that may be able to make it, and I hope you can, it usually fills up fast. People are really interested in this. We're usually sold out. People are looking up at the sky. People are carrying their cameras with them in the Phoenix area. They want to see the Phoenix lights. And you know what? They are. Someone caught a picture, this picture, January 30th, 2009. And it's so exciting, it's so encouraging that people are opening their hearts, opening their minds, they're curious, they want to learn about this now. And it's time that we can get this out in the open, and it's time we all join together to do that very thing. So if I can leave you with one more positive thought, keep looking up. Thank you so much.